Well, come on in. I am I am having a an Instagram problem today. So I am going to see if I can get this fixed. It is actually not even letting me see my Instagram, which is crazy. But you are here, so come on in and let me get this together. I'm going to figure out what the problem is and why it is not allowing me to go into my own Instagram account. Like, that's crazy. Um, so it's like, okay, here it is. It's showing up now on the screen, and I'm gonna have to get. Uh, let's see. Okay. So it's. I think it's not accepting the fact that I was trying to go live from my streaming platform. So that's okay. I'm just going to do it the old fashioned manual way and get it going. It now says I'm live on Instagram. And that's where I want to make sure that people can see me on Instagram. So today is another day. It is a beautiful day. As you can see, I am in my other office, which is just gorgeous. The wind is blowing. It's a light breeze. It's just beautiful out here today. And I'm just so grateful to have you on here. I want to just say officially welcome and good afternoon. Today is Thursday. Today is Thursday. And thank you for taking your time to join me on Dr. Tanya Live. So we are going to dive right in, but I love to start with this particular scripture that focuses on who we are. So we'll start with Ephesians 2:10. For we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus so we can do the good things that he's planned for us long ago. I love that particular verse. I've been saying it since day one of these lives, and it's because it really does speak to who I am and how God created me. And it speaks to who you are and how God created you. So he created us to be unique and to be special with certain gifts and talents and abilities because there is something that he wants us to be able to do with that. And he's got good works planned for us. And so, because of that, we can do something. Now, I don't know if you hear my neighbor's dog, but he probably hears me talking and he's now wanting to talk back. But we're just going to keep it moving because we have things to talk about today. So, you're not here by accident. I am so grateful to have you. I do ask that you will share this with people in your network, that if you're not already following me on social media, that you feel free to go ahead and follow me and subscribe. And again, thank you for joining me. Today is actually day 19 of Dr. Tanya Live every day, and it's 19 out of 90 days. So I have challenged myself to go live for 90 days every single day, showing up to encourage women and men, because sometimes I have men on here as well who are looking to get their businesses started, who may have started a business, but they're not quite sure what to do with that business to get it moving, or might need motivation or that push to be able to move in a different direction. But if you're with me for the first time, I'm Dr. Tanya, and this is Dr. Tanya Live. And we call this Real Talk for Women and Men building their businesses. And so I'm grateful to have you with me today. Our topic today is, what are you afraid of? So we're going to talk about that topic because that fear thing just seems to show up at different times in our lives. And when we're trying to get a new business off the ground, I say that fear is oftentimes that the biggest enemy to keep us from getting our businesses going. And so I want to make sure, and I do see you, so I want to just wave back at you. I see you over there on Instagram. Um, and I just want to make sure we kind of really ground ourselves a little bit in like understanding where all this comes from, what we can do about it, how do we address it, what are we actually dealing with when we're talking about fear in business, like what are we afraid of, right? What are we afraid of? So fear shows up in our lives all the time, right? So, as children, we often will be afraid of the boogeyman, right? Oh, there's a monster under my bed. I remember, my kids when they were little, being concerned about, you know, a monster or something outside their window or under their bed or whatever. And we would come and we would reassure them, and we would let them know that what you think is going to happen is actually not going to happen. What you think, what you're afraid of, we're here to protect you. We're here to make sure that everything is that you're safe, that no harm is gonna come to you. So you're gonna be fine. And so as children, they learn to trust us and believe us that everything is gonna be just fine. And as time goes on, eventually they stop worrying about the boogeyman or whatever that fear is in their, that might come and get them at night when they go to bed, right? And so it's easy for children to just trust their parents and just believe that everything's going to be all right because they know their parents are protecting them. They know their parents are there. And so they know it's safe, right? But when we become adults and we start having fears about the boogeyman of business, right? Which can look very different for different people. When we start thinking about, well, what is the boogeyman when you're starting a business? And how are you going to get to a place where you start to feel safe, like that little child who is, afraid of the boogeyman under the bed, right? Or in the closet. And so, how do we get to a place where we begin to feel safe and we begin to trust God in particular, that nothing bad is going to happen to us as we are trying to move forward in this business, right? So it doesn't mean that you won't have trouble. We all are going to have some kind of challenge here and there, but it does mean that we don't have to let that stop us from moving forward in building the kind of business that really makes an impact in this world, right? And so let's kind of dive in a little bit and talk about what that is. And feel free to talk back to me. I love when I can, respond to you. I can see the chat. I have it set up where I can see chats from the different um, platforms. I don't know if it always works right, but we'll still do that. So here's something that I was thinking about. So, like, if you're a new founder, a new business owner, and you're thinking about getting your business off the ground, this venture that you have, what is it that new founders fear? Like, what are they afraid of when they're getting ready to build a new business? So one of the things that I had written down was a fear that I've heard a lot of folks say, and it is, will people even buy from me? Like, will they buy my product? Will they buy my service? Like, and really behind that fear is a little bit of imposter syndrome or a little bit of, I don't know if I'm worthy or qualified. That's really what's behind that. That's one of the fears that I often hear. I didn't really have that fear per se, but I know that people get nervous about whether or not when they get their business started, whether or not people are going to actually buy from them. And so we have to think about, like, okay, well, so what is, like, how do I combat that? How do I deal with that? Well, it starts with selling and marketing, right? So as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you have to sell, you have to market your business. So here's an area where I have not done the best. I have not always been the best marketer. I'm not been the best seller. It's an area that I feel like I am continuing to learn because it's not something I had to do in my career as an educator. I never had to really market education. It was a given, right? But in business, what you do is not a given. And here's the other challenge that I've had, which is kind of a, a, a good and a bad, if you will. So when I relaunched this business and brought on my business partner, Dr. Erica, um, I actually really didn't have to market at all. We literally had people just, a beetle just like jumped on my lap. Okay, it went away. Um, we literally had people just being referred to us, literally, like they knew the work that we were doing. They trusted that we could deliver on the work that we were doing, and we had a reputation going back in and launching this business because of some of the work that I had done while working for the State Department of Education. So I actually didn't have to really market at all. because the referrals were just coming and coming and coming and coming. Now, when I heard God say to me last year, I want you to relaunch your brand around purpose, that meant I had to start all over again, right? And starting all over meant you've got a market. So now I find that I am like really having to re up on marketing and understanding marketing. I do understand it, by the way, and have the resources. So if you are afraid about whether people are going to buy from you, you got to like up your marketing game. And that marketing starts by you opening your mouth and letting people know either via social media, via email, via ads, like whatever type of campaign you choose, that helps you to combat the fear of will people even buy from me, and you've got to get to a place where you are also not afraid to sell, because some people are afraid of selling. But here's what I've heard, and I know this to be true: if you don't sell, nobody will buy, and if nobody buys, you don't have a business. So what's the point in starting a business if you're not willing to sell for the business? People are like, well, I don't like being a salesperson. I'm not a salesman, and I'm not comfortable with that. Well, how else are people going to know that you have this business unless you open your mouth and share? You've got to share. You've got to find a way to share. Now, some people are able to hire folks who can do that and be their mouthpiece. Other people, especially when you're first starting out, you don't always have the budget to put out there like that. So you have to actually figure out how to do this yourself. So that's one of the fears, and this is how we can deal with that fear. Here's another fear that new founders often have. That is the fear of, will I be successful? So, we don't actually know the answer to that question. Nobody knows um, whether or not you can be successful. You can only control what you do, your output, your input. Okay, so I have a comment here, and I want to just read that and respond to that, and I'll come back to the successful piece. So, fear of opening my mouth was my problem. This is what's being said here. When I launched on social media, I was surprised by the feedback, and I imagine that feedback was probably positive. Here's the thing: people sometimes are waiting for what you have to offer. And so when you open your mouth, they're like, "Oh, you do that? Oh, I didn't know that I didn't know that this was an area where you were skilled, or this is an area that you're building your business. I can use your business. I can use the service or the product that you're offering." When we tell people about it, the ones that need what we have will respond to us because that's what they're looking for. And that's the thing I think that we have to remember when we're opening our businesses. It's not really just for us. Yes, certainly we can get satisfaction, certainly we can get revenue, and we can become wealthy from our businesses, but we're opening businesses because we're solving somebody's problem. So when people see that you're solving a problem for them, or that you're open for business, they're like, and if they know you and they like you and they trust you, they're going to want to do business with you. That's how it works. Like, it's the whole know, like, trust factor. They'll do business with people that they know, that they like, and that they trust, right? Now, sometimes they'll do business with you because somebody else knows, likes, and trusts you and says, hey, do business with this person because I know them, I like them, and I trust them, and they're going to deliver on what their business promises to deliver. So let's go back to these fears again. So, this fear of being successful, again, we can't control whether we're successful, meaning we can't control the outcome. We can only control what we do, what our efforts are, on our side. So when I think about success, you can plan for success. So you can have goals that you've set for your business. You can have KPIs, key performance indicators, if that's not a language that you're accustomed to. You can have these um, for every year that you're operating in business. That helps you to be able to have metrics that you are looking for. You can measure the success that you have, and success looks different in everybody's business. So success could be the number of people that you sold to this month. Success could also be the number of people that you reached as leads. As you're generating leads, people who potentially could become buyers, your success might be in how many leads did I reach this month, right? So you determine the kind of metrics. You can also determine your output, but you cannot control the outcome. But if God gave this to you, especially if you are a believer and God has given you a plan for a business or an idea for a business, once you start working that business, if you are being obedient, He is going to bless it. That's that's just how He operates. If He gives us something to do, He is going to make sure that it's supposed to do what it's supposed to do. Now, it doesn't mean that it may not happen in the time that you want it to, because our timing isn't always in our control either. But if God gave it to you, God is going to give you success in what you do. But you have to look at, what does success mean in your family? Maybe success is you've got more time on your hand. Maybe success is you get to spend more time with your family because you're not working 12 hours around the clock for somebody else. And so you get to determine what success looks like in your life and in your business. So let's move on to another fear that many entrepreneurs are afraid of. They are afraid of whether or not they could pull this off. Like, if you are a new founder, especially if you've never owned a business before, you might be fearful that you might not be able to pull this off. Like, can I pull this off? Can I do this? Can I actually like have a business that people buy from, that I am enjoying, that I'm successful, I'm prospering in it? The answer is yes, you can. And sometimes we have to remind ourselves of God's promises. So, what are His promises to you? What did He say to you? If He gave this to you, don't you believe that He's also going to not only equip you to do all of this, but also provide for you? Like, that's how He operates. So, like, understand what His promises are. Go back and look up the promises that apply to you. And as you're going through those promises, rehearse them over and over. There's some folks who will remind themselves of how wonderful or great they might be by using affirmations, and they'll rehearse those affirmations. But the truth is, the affirmations can help, but if you don't actually believe it, then it doesn't matter. You could say it a million times, but if you don't believe it, it's not going to happen. So, what do you actually believe about? So, what does God say about the um, whether or not you can pull off starting a brand new business with very little business experience and very little revenue and very little whatever, um, maybe not revenue, but startup costs, and like, what does God say about that? Right. And then how do you then get to a place where you believe what God says about you and what God says about this business? You can indeed pull this off, but you have to also believe that. I hear this. I follow this social media platform where this guy goes around. You may have seen him. This guy goes around interviewing millionaires and billionaires all over the world. He literally travels the world and he interviews them on the street. It's pretty novel. He's a young guy and he's made tons of millions of dollars doing this, getting in touch with millionaires and billionaires. But what I like about it is you get to hear the perspectives of the different millionaires and billionaires that are out there, especially those billionaires. And sometimes what they actually, what I've heard over and over again, and I know this to be true, is a lot of the success of our business is in what we believe. What we believe. What is our mindset about our business or about the success of our business? Can we see it? Can we believe it? If so, we can achieve it. So I remember, I think I shared this before. Like, our beliefs are so powerful, they're so strong, that they really will. We can change lives just by what we believe, right? And so if you don't believe you can start a business, if you don't believe that you can be successful in business, guess what? You are going to struggle. You're not going to be successful until you get the right mindset about it. I remember talking to my husband recently just about, like, the belief in being a multi millionaire and even a billionaire. And he's like, "You sound like you really believe that." And I was like, "Because I do. Like, I absolutely believe that. Like, it's not hard to raise to earn $1 million in your business. It's definitely not hard to earn $100,000, and it's not hard to earn $500,000, and it's not hard to earn $1 million in your business either, if you have the right mindset. But those of us who don't have the right mindset, we're going to continue to have that fear that says, well, can I pull this off? If you have that fear, it's speaking to your mindset, it's speaking to the beliefs that you have about your business. Do you actually believe that your business is going to solve problems for people, and that people are going to respond to you, and they're going to buy from you? Do you believe that? Do you believe that you have something that to offer that nobody else has, or you have something that is uniquely different from what other people are offering? Do you believe that what you're offering is going to change lives, is going to improve people's lives, or their situations, or their circumstances, or their feet, or their bodies, or their whatever it is that they are purchasing for their homes? Do you believe that what you have is worth it? If you don't believe that, you've got to work on your belief system. You've got to work on that. That is key and critical to your success. Everything that you believe is going to come through in how you operate and how you function as an entrepreneur. All right, so let's go to another fear that some entrepreneurs, especially new ones, may feel. They may be afraid of change, right? So, how starting a business might affect their family, or how it might affect their future. So, change is something that the average adult is afraid of. Most adults do not want to change. Most adults do not want, um, they don't want things to be different from the status quo. But if you are going to be an entrepreneur, if you are founding a brand new business, things are going to change. A lot is going to change. But that change does not have to be a bad change. The change could be for the better. So how do we get to a place where we can embrace the change? So I don't know. I'm easy that way. So I actually enjoy change. So I'm different from a lot of my peers who would just rather keep it like this. Like, okay, I need to know what's going to happen. I need the predictable thing. Really, is it change that you're afraid of, or is it fear of losing control? Because sometimes if we have issues with control, we have trouble with change. We don't want things to change because it gets outside of our control. But when we are business owners, when we're entrepreneurs, we don't get to control everything, and we can control a lot. Some people start a business because they want to have control over their time, and they want to have control over how much they bring in, which by the way we can't control either. We can set the atmosphere and create an atmosphere to be able to bring in the kinds of revenue that we want, but we don't always have control over that either. But when we talk about change, you can mitigate for change. So if you're starting a business, the people that you love the most should be around you. They need to know, like, okay, so how will this impact us? And how can we support you in this, right? So there are conversations that you can have with the people that are in your circle. Um, they can help you in the adjustment period that goes, especially if you're leaving a full time job to launch a full time business. And not everybody should do that. That may not be the wisest decision, because there is an on ramp to getting your business going. There's time for you to build it and get it to the place where where you're bringing in the kind of revenue that could potentially replace a salary. But when it comes to change, you want to plan ahead, right? You want to prepare everybody that's involved. Let's talk about another area where people struggle with fear as new business owners. Time. Okay, how much of my time will be required of me as a new entrepreneur? What am I going to have to sacrifice? So, when you start a new business, it is going to require your time. Facts. How much of that time is unpredictable, but it doesn't mean you can't put boundaries around your time. You can decide. I remember early on as a business owner, I had a really close friend who was also an entrepreneur, and we were each other's accountability partners, and so we would hold each other accountable. And this is when I was a sole proprietor, and I didn't have a business partner at the time, and so my really close friend was my accountability partner, and so we would hold each other accountable. And so time was a conversation that often came up. And at the time, we were empty nesters already, or just about. And at least our kids were old enough that if they were like college age or getting ready to be for her. And so our time around like what we had to do for our kids had already changed. But I remember her saying, okay, so what hours are you open for business? And that seemed like a simple question, but in the day-to-day operation of this new business, I actually didn't think about that. I had not thought about what are my hours of operation. So that was like an early opportunity to begin to put boundaries around my time as a new entrepreneur. So it was like, okay, so I'm open from this time to this time. And that was a signal to me to actually like give myself time and space to relax and breathe. There are some schools of thought that you need to build in breathing time. And I'm using the word breathing, but it looks different for everybody. So when we grind, and we keep going all the time, which many entrepreneurs, when they're starting off, will just be going. And so we get to have control over our calendar. So because we can control our calendar, we can build in time to do things like read, write if need be, to just think, to listen to a podcast, to whatever it is. So, one of the things that Dr. Eric and I do is unless we are called to a client earlier in the morning, we typically officially start our workday around 10. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm like in bed till 10. I am not in bed till 10. I get up so that I have time to exercise, so that I have time to read God's word and spend time in my meditation and study. It gives me time to read a book, to catch up on what's going on in the news. And all of that is before I sit down at my office or sit down in my office and officially start my workday. And so, but the benefit of that is I can kill two birds with one stone a lot of times. So I can take a walk and listen to a book. I do that all the time. It is like a common thing. So a lot of my own professional development might happen from a book. You can also plan to, to just have time to just sit. If we don't stop what we're doing as entrepreneurs to stop and think for a while, give ourselves a break from the grind of being an entrepreneur, it's hard for new ideas to come. So we need those new ideas to come. And so we need to make sure that we build that into the day, build that into our week, build that into the month, into our calendar, so that we have greater control over our time. So, and I'm looking at time and I'm like, oh, wow, we've been talking for a while here. Here's the thing, there are other areas that new founders fear. There are other areas where we may get nervous when we're starting our businesses, around money and resources, or around people's opinions. And I'm going to stop where I am right now, but I want you to understand that we are not to be worrying about any of these things. We're never to be anxious. Any of these things we can present to God and He will help us. But sometimes we do get stuck. Sometimes fear will paralyze us. Sometimes fear will make it so that we can't move forward. Like we've got this great business idea, but we can't seem to get it started. That might be your problem or your story. And I want you to understand that you do not have to live in a space of fear. So I have two resources I want to make available to you, and I want you to take advantage of them. The first one is free. The second one is very, very low cost. The first one is a devotional. It's a 10-day devotional that will walk you through some of the fears and challenges that you have. And then there's an ebook that actually gets deeper into it, like fear is not your business plan. So we will rely on fear sometimes, and it will stop us from moving forward in the plans, those good plans that God has for us. We don't want that to be the case. So I've written an ebook specifically designed to help you address the fears that that stop you from moving forward in your business and moving forward and getting your dream fulfilled. I want you to go on my website, tanyabreland.com. That's where you can get access to both of those resources. And when I say they're going to change your life. They really are. It's if you can tackle and name the fear and get it out of there, then you can move forward. You are not held back any longer. You are no longer bound by the thing that causes concern for you. And that's what I want for you, because I want you to be a successful entrepreneur. And so I invite you to go to my website, I'm sorry, not doctor, my website, TanyaBreland.com, and you can see the resource, which is free. You can also get the ebook. I want you to take advantage of both of them. You are going to need those as you journey through this entrepreneurial journey. Here's the thing, with the 10-day devotional, you don't have to download anything, although you can, but you have access to it right there on your device. And you can write right on your device and nobody sees it. It's private to just you. And so I want to make sure that you have access to that. There's also an interactive companion that goes with the ebook. It's really cool. And it really is going to help you address the issues that you're being challenged by. Anyway, I've come to the end of today's session, and I want to thank you for spending your lunchtime with me. If anything that I talked about resonates with you, I'd love to hear from you. Inbox me, send me a message, shoot me an email, Tanya@TanyaBreland.com. I really do appreciate when you talk back to me, when you respond to me, when you give me feedback. And I would love to just hear how this is blessing you. Again, tomorrow I'm going to talk about what's in your hand right now. I'm excited about tomorrow's topic. Invite a friend to join you as you join me. The world needs your yes. Say yes to what God has given to you. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. The time might be a little bit different, but I'll let you know. Have a great rest of your day. God bless you.